Well, we've been speaking about power prices, and yet the warnings keep on coming that Labor's green dream is sending us broke and backwards. The Victorian government's aggressive electrification of the power network is likely to result in mass blackouts, with demand forecast to outweigh renewable energy supply by more than 30% in some months. Now, a report has warned there will be blackouts across the state during colder months, while Victorians will be stung with Australia's most expensive power bills. Joining me now is the Herald Sun's Patrick Carlyon. Patrick, nice to see you. Thanks for joining me. Whatever happened to power bills going down under renewables?
Well, they're just going to go up, aren't they? I mean, we're seeing more and more evidence of this. And it's all about this, you call it a green dream, I'd call it an ideological illusion that somehow renewables could, power everything in a way that we could reject fossil fuels, whether it's gas or coal or nuclear for that matter. We need fossil fuels as it is to actually turn the lights on. And we're going to see that more and more often, these threats of blackouts or brownouts or whatever. And it's all because it's all very predictable, and it's all because of this sort of false rhetoric, if you like, that we're going to be totally renewable. It can't happen. It's just simply can't happen.
But the other issue is though, the warnings, Patrick, have been there for some time. Victoria is always warned about this. During the winter cold snap, Victoria was warned. Here in New South Wales, it wasn't even summer at that point, it was late November, we were told to turn the power off between 3 and 8 p.m. because the grid simply couldn't cope. AEMO's been warning. How many more warnings do you need? Why won't Labor take this threat seriously?
Well, that's why they're, very quietly extending the lifespans of these coal-fired power stations. In Victoria, we've got lots of gas, underground and offshore, but we haven't developed it over the last 10 years. And so Victoria is facing a situation where it will probably have to import gas, even though gas has been demonised for years as, this fossil fuel that we must stamp out. We're going to be importing gas most likely to actually keep the lights on. So you've got this weird game being played where you've got the public sort of face, let's go green. And at the same time, they're actually, trying to shore up supplies with coal or with gas to make sure that the lights will stay on.
It's just absolutely phony. And I was even thinking about Victoria's Loy Yang. Remember, it went offline during a freak storm and it put, 50,000 plus people out of power. Again, you can't just rely on the grid like this. It's just completely dysfunctional right now. Now, I want to move on to another topic, Patrick, because the departing de facto Palestinian ambassador to Australia has predicted that a re-elected Albanese government would recognise a Palestinian state, as he's also praised Labor for daring to repeatedly anger Israel and break with the United States in its stance on the Middle East. I mean, who would have thought? Here was Anthony Albanese speaking about that today.
Look, we have a position where we support a two-state solution. I think that quite clearly at the moment what we want to see is peace and security for Israel in the region, but also we want to see an end to conflict. I think that's what most Australians overwhelmingly want to see in the region. And we have had a long-standing bipartisan position in this country of support for two states in the Middle East.
Well, Patrick, it doesn't fill you with much hope when Penny Wong's already sold out our votes, our values for votes on the world stage when she voted for Palestinian statehood at the United Nations. So what on earth is Anthony Albanese talking about?
Well, I think that the likelihood of a two-state solution right now is probably, the least likely it's been since 1948. The Jewish community has felt terribly let down. We've seen outbreaks of, anti-Semitism. They're getting more and more common, it seems. And you've got Penny Wong sort of completely simplistically sort of describing a situation in the Middle East that really doesn't exist. I mean, Israel was defending itself. It's fighting for its existence. And the Jewish people here, who have been here for generations, who are good citizens, have been completely let down. And, the Labor Party, the Albanese government has basically tried to sort of, appease the Palestinian electorate, for the upcoming federal election. And at the same time, trying to sort of pay lip service to the Jewish community. And ultimately, the Jewish community has been totally let down.
Oh, absolutely. And you've got this de facto Palestinian ambassador believing that the government will indeed recognise Palestine. There was a comment made by somebody in the Palestinian network, one of those groups recently, that said Anthony Albanese is the best friend that Palestine's ever had in the lodge. What sort of a message is this sending to the Jewish community in this country, which is already on edge, suffering day in, day out with anti-Semitic attacks?
Bob Hawke will be turning in his grave at this. He was a friend of Israel. He supported what they were about. It was a democracy surrounded by, tyrannies in the Middle East. He backed it all the way. And now you've still got this hard left sort of element, sort of dictating, national policy in a way that's really at odds with what we know and what we thought we knew, and really disregards generations of Jewish Australians who have done really well being in Australia and have really contributed. It's really disappointing.
And then you've got a situation, Patrick, where we're now sending the Attorney General over to Israel to try and quickly mend relations. What is that going to achieve? That the horse has already bolted. It bolted the day after the October 7 massacre on the steps of the Sydney Opera House. That's when it should have started, Patrick. And now we're quickly playing catch up by sending the Attorney General over there.
Yeah, well, we saw when Penny Wong went over there, she didn't even visit. It was a very symbolic gesture not to visit the sites of the massacres. And we've seen that all the way through. I agree with you, Danica. It had to be stamped on, from October 8, when we first started seeing those dreadful protests, that the anti-Jewish rhetoric was allowed to go unchecked. And it's been virtually unchecked ever since, in a way. How do you get it back to where it ought to be? They're certainly not doing a good job of trying to get it back, are they?
No, the horse is well and truly bolted, and once again at the expense of Jewish Australians. Patrick Carlyon, nice to speak with you. Thank you very much for joining me on the show this evening.